Welcome to Lighten Up, the art of living clutter-free, the podcast where we tackle the literal and figurative clutter standing between you and your healthiest and happiest life. I'm Melanie, your host, coach, and guide on this journey to help you design a life that you love. Whether it's clearing out your kitchen cabinets, untangling your digital files, or letting go of the mental blocks that hold you back, we're here to make space for what truly matters. Let's lighten up together, starting now. Welcome back to Lighten Up, the art of living clutter-free, where we explore the physical, mental, and emotional clutter that holds us back and discover practical ways to lighten the figurative and the literal load that we carry. And today, I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to introduce my very first guest, a remarkable woman who has been an important part of my life for an incredible 42 years. I have with me Sonya Weisshappel-Christy, who is the founder and owner of Seriatim, a company that goes far beyond what you expect from an organizational business. Seriatim doesn't just help people organize their homes. They provide a holistic approach to decluttering and inventory management, creating systems and solutions that transform lives in ways that you could never imagine until she or a team member of hers is in your home. So in this episode, we're going to explore what it means to truly declutter, not just your physical space, but the mental and emotional clutter that comes with it all. And we're going to talk about how Seriatim is changing the game in this field. Plus, you'll get a glimpse into the unique bond we've shared for over 4 decades, and how that shaped the way we view the world. Hello, Sonya.
Hello, my love.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
It is so good to see you. So, Sonya, why do I have you here today?
Clutter, clutter, clutter. I would say uh, it's a discussion that we have had for decades. It's an idea, it's a concept, and you and I love this topic. So here we go.
We do, we do. Okay, so like at its roots, it's basic. How the heck did you get into this business?
I avoided writing a resume, and because it was very hard for me to write a resume with my dyslexia and also just feeling adequate, which was my own mental clutter around somewhere in my brain. I thought it might be easier to start a company than get a job and fit into someone else's structure. So at 23, I started a company, and here I am.
3. Wow. It took me until my feast to say, okay, I can start a business. I love that. How does someone who's only 23 years old know enough to be able to create a successful business? So, but why organizing? Why didn't you open a store or, something?
I took from what I knew, and being an only child with three mothers, basically, my mom as the baby with two older sisters who had no children. One of them was a geriatric care manager, the other was an architect interior designer. And my mom, my whole childhood, worked for her. And so my exposure to interior design, architecture, geriatric care on home visits, like making sure people are well in their space and all of that. And then their brother was and is a commercial real estate agent. And then when we moved to New York, when I was 13 and when we met, my mom became a Corcoran broker. And at that time, Barbara Corcoran had a very small team, and mom was one of the original. So I would go to the office and listen to what Barbara had to say about getting that listing sold. So when you take real estate, commercial and residential, you take caregiving in the home, and you take making homes and hotels and places to visit pretty and all the logistics around it, which was my mom's job. I thought everyone knew how to do that. And then I began to realize that people were having a hard time with finding their stuff, or in their first apartment setting it up. They couldn't figure out how to match who they wanted to be with what objects they surrounded themselves. And that was so simple for me. So I began to like, oh, I'll help you with that. Can you help me with this? And trading knowledge and learning that I was really good at that and not everyone had that skill. And then two names in the phone book under the word organizing, and I called them, and one of them gave me a job over the phone.
Amazing. And now, if you were to open phone book for the young listeners,
It's a lump in a corner, but no longer. It's all digital.
when people think of an organizer, they think of someone who comes to your house and, tears it apart and puts it back together so everything's color coded and organized and alphabetized, et cetera, et cetera. And that they're going to encourage you to get rid of everything, so you're down to a capsule wardrobe of 33 items or, beautiful Scandinavian white walls and furniture, with other dulcet, warm tones. And that's not your approach or how you work. So first, tell us the other things that Seriatim does above and beyond, like going to someone's home and cleaning it up.
Seriatim handles people in a life transition. And so, what that means for us is someone's getting married, having a baby, maybe divorcing, maybe renovating, job transferring, all these life events, which we have 3 to 5 of minimal in our lifetime, these big major events, lifequakes. We deal with people at a time of a lifequake. We do that by touching and organizing what is tangible in their life, objects. We also do that with paperwork and digital files, and we organize memorabilia. So those 3 categories are what everyone has and what ultimately needs to be organized. But in addition to organizing, we're often in those scenarios in a state of crisis. And in that crisis, there tends to be a move, and a move towards something or a move away from something. But there's a shift in real estate and location. And that means tangible assets, files, and memorabilia have to be chosen to come with or stay behind. And if they're not coming with, do we sell it? Do we donate it? Do we throw it away? And all of those decisions we handle with or without a client.
Oh, what do you mean with or without a client?
Well, during COVID, we learned for sure that clients didn't need to be present if they were clear about what they wanted. Sometimes it was take everything and move it from here to there and set it up, and I want to walk in. Great. That's easy. Another is put it all in storage. Okay. So you catalog it all and you inventory and you put it all in storage. No problem.
Hmm.
It gets complicated when it's like, well, I don't like that book, but I want that book. Oh, I don't use that spice anymore, but I do use those. That level of minutia can be done, but that's harder to do when they're not present.
Right. It's really funny that you mentioned the spices because that's like how I got into this. The listeners should know that I approached Sonya many times in the past because I wanted to help one of my parents who was very clearly having struggles with clutter. And I'm gonna call a spade, like to the level of hoarding. And it was very sad and scary, anger provoking, like all of the strong, heavy, uncomfortable feelings. And I reached out to Sonia on several occasions. She had ideas and nothing was working. Not Sonia's ideas. It just like we weren't ready yet to really address it as a family in an effective and meaningful way. Several times you would say, you should come work for me. And I was like, I can't work for Sonia. I'm not organized. And I think it's an opportunity for me to be able to say what I saw as organizing. Listeners, I'm doing air quotes right now if you're not watching the video version, but I didn't think I was organized enough. I realized, like anything else in life, it is so much easier to help someone than it is to help yourself. And so the more that I've worked with you, the better I've gotten in my own space, being very clear. I have no interest in being a minimalist because I love things. Things have great energy. I love colors and patterns and shapes, and I like stuff. I like to touch things and look at things. So I'm not going to get rid of everything, but I've gotten rid of a lot in the last couple of years. But everyone should know when I decided to start my business, I said, I need help. I need to learn from someone who owns her own business, a woman in business, someone that I trust and see as successful. So I reached out to Sonya and said, I'd like to like apprentice with you. And you said, sure. And you had me come on a project. You were moving a client from the West Coast to the East Coast. I guess there wasn't enough time to do the downsizing that you would normally like to do before moving someone. And you put me in charge of some of like the easy things because this was still like new to me. And you sat me down in the kitchen with boxes of spices, boxes of spices. I was like, why does one person need so many spices? And as I sat on the floor and was sorting and alphabetizing, and there's like 5 jars of marjoram and 5 jars of sesame seeds, like I would understand 5 jars of garlic or oregano or salt and pepper, but not those other like lesser known things. And it was clear what that meant was is that the space wasn't organized, and every time a recipe came up that called for marjoram, she couldn't find it, so she went to the store and bought another jar. I get all of that. But while I was sitting there, I remembered a meeting back in the day when I worked for Weight Watchers, and it was all about like kitchen clutter contributes to struggles with weight. And there was a reference to a book, Does This Clutter Make My Butt Look Fat? I can't remember the guy's name, but Peter Wells or something, one of those like famous organizers that was on TV shows. And I read the book and I didn't like it very much. I loved the fact that he was able to address the fact that clutter gets in the way of healthy eating, but his book was very diety. And I don't like dieting. Like, I want real life. Don't tell me what I can and can't eat. I'll figure that out. Don't tell me to exercise or not exercise. I wanted more guidance in terms of the clutter. And this was all happening at the same time you and I were first having this conversation about my parents. And as I was sitting on that floor, I said, you know what? I'm not starting a weight loss company. I am going to start a company that helps people, dominantly middle-aged women, lose weight and get healthy by removing the physical and mental clutter in their lives. It was all like I was dreaming it all up while I was sitting on that kitchen floor. And I know that it was so valuable to me because I wanted a unique approach to weight loss. I didn't want it to be eat this, don't eat that, or move this way, don't move that way, or did you drink enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? But what is getting in the way of doing those things, and what's getting in the way is either physical or mental clutter or both. And so you introduced me to the ability to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Of course, I'm glad 5 jars of marjoram can help solidify your business future.
I was okay with resumes, but I wasn't okay with spices,
Well,
apparently.
that's why we learn from each other and can. But it does relate to why I started the company, which has to do with matching people to what they want. And if you want to sew and you want to quilt, for example, which I want to desperately learn how to do, I've joined the club. I haven't gone. Okay. I know that's a step towards.
One baby step at a time.
However, I just found that there is a second meeting of things, and I will. So now I have more options. And so, great. In order to do the sewing, I need a machine. In order to have a machine, you need a spot to put the machine. Then you need a place where scissors and fabric and other supplies to support the creative outlet are. That is what I consider matching someone to what they want. If the sewing machine is in the bottom of the closet behind 10 bags of who knows what, by the time you've dug it out, your will to do it is gone and you're not doing it. Or you got distracted in bag one and you forgot why you even entered the closet, which is often the case. Or you moved the bags and now they're all over the place. And now the next thing that you wanted to do, you've blocked. And it's like a ricocheting of not being able to get to what you need when you need it. Love stuff also. I don't have a minimalist home. In fact, Pete and I are quite little collectors of things. But what I do have is in order. And what I also have is the habit of every day making the bed, and at the end of every night at my desk, cleaning it off, emptying the garbage can, putting the pens back in the thing, making a quick list of what I need to remember for the morning, and like turning the key off in my head and walking out. But so many people like to just leave it, and you come back and now you've got to get yourself in order to get going on what you need to do. And that's really hard. That's when clutter gets in the way. So if you, God forbid, needed to, as we both have, be rushed to an emergency room for some reason, the last freaking thing you want to hear is, "Where is?"
Right.
You do not want to hear those words. "Oh, we can't find the," and your life is on the line and they can't find it. Unacceptable to have disorder in a place that helps people. So, why do we allow it to be in our own world? What are we doing to not help ourselves get to what we want?
I think it's pretty timely for you to be talking about that in that way, given I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but there are still problems with fires in Los Angeles County, and someone that we both know lost his home. And I don't think there's anybody that isn't connected to someone in California who either lost their home or was displaced or something.
Something.
And this is that time, like on the news now, they're talking about this is what should be in your go bag, and this is the, case that you should have, the papers in, and this is where you should keep it. And that's a conversation that needs to be had well in advance of there having been a major catastrophe, whether it's, a hurricane here on the West Coast, a tornado in the Midwest,
Or those
yes.
are those are the Lifequakes, and a fire, flood is, or an earthquake are beyond awful. Those levels of natural disasters, those cut you to the bone. And when someone is not prepared, it's even worse because they kick themselves.
Mhm. If only, which, like that what if game is a pretty dangerous game to get into also because it creates a lot of mental clutter. Like it's my fault, or I should have done it this way, or should have done it that way. And that gets a huge mess. So I didn't ask before, but I think it's important for people to know why your business is called Seriatim. What does that mean?
Well, seriatim is a Latin word for in a series, and 8 is my lucky number. And I always had an affection for the Eastern religions, and so yin yang was very important to me. At the image of it, so I wanted the circle at the end of my logo, which is 8 parts, is green, but it really in my mind was a yin yang. And if you go all the way to the left, the circle is cut in half, and it is just about to step away from each other. The two halves are like about to break. Normally, when we are entering, seriatim is entering into someone's life, that person or family or situation is kind of on a breaking point. And it's not always a straight line to get them from that sense of shit to home, but it is a journey and it's a series of steps. And that's what Seriatim is. I did do the green and the blue for trees and water because we are all part of this. And that's why the LA fires, it's not just them, or the wars overseas. It's not just their problem. It's like COVID taught us that what happens over there does affect us here.
Having had a considerable amount of damage in the Northridge earthquake to our home. I don't think it's unique anymore, but I do feel like, this is something I can talk about because I remember when like we didn't have a single dish or glass because everything had broken. Our bed broke in the earthquake, which is, a whole other story. Did you take Latin at Columbia Prep?
No.
No, it's just a word that came to you. So you've
It's
never had Latin with Mr. Daly?
no,
Oh, hi,
because
Mr.
my
Daly.
dyslexia and all that, yeah, moves around in my head, and I can't even do English 100%. So the idea of adding in
But
languages
I
is,
think we were encouraged to take Latin because it was going to help us with our vocabulary. Do I have a great vocabulary? I did. And then I hit my 50s and menopause, and I have no memory. So I did have great vocabulary at some point in my life. But okay. All
it
right. It's
ebbs
all
and
good.
flows depending on
Yeah.
where we are.
A lot, I mean, and that speaks to, the concept of mental and emotional clutter. I remember your room growing up. This is what I remember. There were two twin beds, which meant someone was always sleeping over at your house.
Yeah, yeah.
There was always someone sleeping over, which is, as an only child, that's important too.
Which was mom, which was my parents making it possible to have friends. Like that was you're going to want to have friends as a teenager, stay over.
Yeah, so I remember that about your home, but I also remember how clean your room was. Like, this was something that was important to you from very early on. And what I will credit myself with, I didn't necessarily have a clean room, but I had things organized. And like my books were alphabetized by author. There was a point in time where I alphabetized them by title of the book, and that ended up not working really well for me. So I went back. But I was often in my room taking the books down and putting them back and reorganizing them in different ways. Now I like the books to be color themed, which drives Bill
Oh,
crazy,
wow.
but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, me
I'm
crazy.
just going to say I enjoy what I like the aesthetic of what that looks like. So I'm going to say a couple other things about things that we did when we were kids that I think have impacted future. And one was you were the editor of the yearbook our senior year, and I did sports layout. And it was fun. We met at your house on Saturdays and we were there like all day. Like, and for people who are listening, the old-fashioned way, this was not digitized. I had this little thing about talking, which
What's
no
that
one is
about?
going to be surprised at. I got in trouble in school for talking too much. I got in trouble at yearbook for talking too much. And what we now know is that that was undiagnosed ADD. And so if it was you or Pam, it could have been both of you, decided that I needed a timer and that I wasn't allowed to talk. I can only work during that period of time. The Pomodoro technique, for people who don't know what that is, Francesco Cirillo in the 80s, when we were in high school, came up with this concept while he was in college and having a hard time concentrating and getting things done. And it was setting a timer for 25 minutes, picking a project that is going to take you that time. Do it, nothing else. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the door. Just do the work. When the timer goes off, take a little break and then go and do another one again. So you guys had me doing what I now do to be efficient before he wrote a book or came up with a website or whatever. I appreciate that. Something else, and that was you and I used to sit during study hall or during lunch in the cafeteria, and we would analyze each other's dreams.
It's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world to do.
So I think back then it was kind of like, oh, that means you like so and so, you know, or that's because you're scared you're going to fail the test, or that's because you didn't do well at your gymnastics meet last weekend. It was very much about the lives we were living then. What I recognize now is when I have a dream where I can't pack my bags and I'm going to be late for the plane, or things are messy and I can't find things, like I know that that means I am stressed in life, that I'm feeling out of control in some way. I get that. A dream that I have a lot is that I'm in a car driving and my foot can't reach the brake, careening out of control. I feel out of control. I can't gain control, which I think is something that comes up a lot when it comes to clutter. For someone who really has a hard time of letting things go, they are hanging on to those things because it is something that they can control, even if it looks to someone else like it's out of control.
Well, also, there's an investment in mental energy for each item. And so, if one wants to be seen or feel like you're important, or you go to the store because you're lonely and you need the dopamine fix of purchasing something, You might have 2,000 of them and you don't need them, but you needed the dopamine.
Right.
So what you really need is a community and not the object. But the disconnect is the mental piece is not aligning with the object.
Right. And this is exactly why I wanted to connect the conversation about weight, health, and wellness and clutter, because what I know when I was at my top weight was that I was using food not as fuel, but I was using it as a way to manage uncomfortable feelings, whether the feelings were stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, or they were low or they were sad. Although I think that I am more likely to eat when I'm very stressed out. When I'm sad, I just want to pass out and not do anything. So it's important to recognize that. But if we're not using food, my grandfather was a gambler, my father was a crack addict. Food was my drug of choice, but shopping can give that same hit of dopamine. And then we are creating physical clutter and potentially creating financial clutter if we are shopping when we're shopping outside of our means, which often happens when we're using shopping as a way to manage very uncomfortable feelings. Do you come across that a lot in people that you work with?
So often that I can't believe it's not resolved as a society. And it's not QVC, Amazon, the ease at which one can now click a button and things appear. It used to be you had to leave, go, communicate, carry home. And that kind of slows down the process for accumulation. Now it's click, 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 and boom, and it's there. And you come home and there are a lot of boxes and you walk right by them and you go off and do something else. Well, if you don't deal with the box influx each day, the box influx becomes a wall. And it or you save every box because you think maybe I'm going to return those X, Y, and Z. You don't make a decision on what it is or isn't. That's the same individual who doesn't open their mail daily. Making your bed, opening your mail, brushing your teeth, opening your mail includes whatever you purchase.
When I think of the things that I want to see myself doing every day are routine. You can call it habit. I like to call them routine. And I routinely get up in the morning and brush my teeth. I routinely brush my teeth at the end of the day. I don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it. There was a point in time where you had no teeth, and then you got teeth and someone brushed them for you, and then they taught you how. And if you were me, I would be told to go brush my teeth, and I don't know what I was doing in the bathroom, like dancing around, and I'd come out and they'd smell my way to go back and brush my teeth, right? At some point, I'm going to assume around the time you and I met when we were 13, I had finally gotten the whole brushing my teeth thing down. But I don't think about it anymore. But anybody who is trying to develop a new habit, whether it's drinking water in the morning before coffee or doing more exercise, maybe what we're trying to do is piggyback on another behavior. I'll drink water while I'm waiting for the coffee to be done, or I'll do toe raises or squats while I'm brushing my teeth. All of those things are great, but we want to line these up in a way that feels good. And I know people are like, oh, I don't make the bed in the morning. Research has shown that when someone makes their bed first thing in the morning, that they feel better, they feel more organized and more capable to do the other things they need to do. Feel the same way about the dishes. There better be no dishes in the sink when I get up in the morning. Like all of that needs to get done. And these are basics. Like they're really basic, but a lot of people have a really hard time with these basic things because they haven't been doing them.
Well, and also the things like, running the dishwasher at night, and while you're making your coffee, unload the dishwasher and the coffee's done and your dishes and you're ready for the new day.
Well, if you have a dishwasher, so I wanted to talk about something you and I were briefly talking about before we started recording, and it's that I was doing some research back in the day, figuring out, what this business means, and I stumbled across something called the Diderot effect. And it's a psychological phenomenon, and it was written by a French philosopher in the 18th century, so a long time ago. And it describes how when you acquire an item that it can lead to like this domino effect or chain reaction of more purchases. And in his case, it was someone had gifted him a luxurious dressing gown. And when he saw this luxurious dressing gown, he started looking at everything else he owned and he's like, oh, my clothing is shabby. So he went out and bought new clothing. And then he had the new clothing and he felt really good in them, but he looked at his surroundings, which looked kind of shabby. So he got a new couch or settee or whatever they called it in the 18th century. And he realized that he was trying to match an aesthetic. And I think that that can happen to a lot of us. I am sure that you've seen this with clients, that it's not just like the dopamine hit, but actually feeling the need to match what's there or or just to update. It's kind of like you get a new phone, all of a sudden you need new accessories. Or I bought a new bed, I need new bedding. And that may actually be true, but not because you're replacing the mattress do you need to replace the bedding every time. And I do see how this can be like this chain reaction of buy more, buy more, buy more, buy more. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, when you go to the grocery store and you went in for the one something and you walked out with the 10 somethings,
Oh, yeah.
it's it's the same as, yeah, I need a new mattress. Oh, well, maybe I'll get a new dust ruffle, a new this. Oh, maybe, oh, we need a new light because this mattress is a little higher. Maybe it, the give a mouse a cookie, it just
Oh, yeah.
keeps going. So, but I do think that that metamorphosis, that transformation, that the tree that goes green that goes to brown in the fall, and that those transformations, things live in one's life for a certain amount of time and they time out and then they need to drift away. The clutter comes in when the door is not opened and the drift away doesn't actually happen. They've mentally drifted away from it. They are ignoring it, but they're not moving it. That's like having a house with gutters and not taking out the leaves and expecting the clogged gutter to not screw up your house. That backup of not doing that habit, not taking on as part of the process. I know as a business owner and as a human, I agree to do something. We all agree to do something. You say, I'm going to go see my in law. Okay, great. You know, you need a ticket. You know, you need to pack your bag, all of those things. But did you think about the other 150 other things that you need to do? All of those pieces in any aspect of our life, there is the one thing that you're aiming to do, and then there's all this detritus that floats around it that is unnamed, or like you wanted the object from Amazon, but you didn't want the box, you didn't want the packaging, you didn't need to deal with the recycling. You just wanted the thing. But you got to deal with all of that to get the thing. And it is small to large. We all have that level of clutter. As a business owner, end of year, not always my favorite time, with renewing insurance and taxes and payroll stuff and like that, on top of holidays, on top of just stuff. That is the season where it's probably not a good time to book a lot of extra things because you don't have the time to do it. So you're not being true to yourself and not matching your need to what space there is on the calendar. All that is clutter, and we do it with objects. We do it in our scheduling. We do it in our finances. We do it in our emotions. It's not bad. It's not. It's just is. If you can get to a place of observation and curiosity instead of judgment and shame, the wound of that scenario heals faster.
100%. 100%. We get so involved with shame, judge, shame that we don't have time to see, past it. So let me ask you a question because people will be listening or watching and they hear you have an organizational company and you do all these really great things for people. But what's your clutter?
Photos.
Tell me more.
I feel responsible. This is the mental clutter aspect. I feel responsible to archive the family history and leave that legacy to the children. However, I inherited from my in-laws all of their stuff they never dealt with. So in rolls boxes and boxes and muck. Okay, awesome. So that's one lump. And then there's my family's lump. And then there's my lump from childhood to here, childhood art, high school yearbooks, my own traveling photos. And then we've lived through the changing of film into digital. So it's changed all the different mediums, just like we had records, we went to CDs, we went from cassettes to or Super 8s to cassettes to CDs to USBs to Blu-ray, like all these different mediums make photo, like getting them all into one something to then begin to sort and dissect is painful. So I asked the children, my two stepsons and my daughter, one day, showing them the whole room. Okay, you all, I'm dead. Dad's dead. This is yours. What do you want? What are you coming in here to get? Of course, they don't like the conversation about us dead, but that is a conversation we all need normalized. And so the answer was they want nothing. And then, of course, I hear that, and then I think they just don't know. So that's my mental clutter. It's like, you think you don't want it, but you're wrong. So,
You say that now, but you'll change your mind later.
you're young, cut to child number 3 overseas saying, hey, can you send me that picture of me in 4th grade doing the blah, blah? It's like, see, if I had thrown all that out, you wouldn't be having this conversation. And then the other one about to get married, all the roasting and all the things of the childhood, those things come up in hand. So what I decided to do was to create the genealogy and to be able to give them that and to be able to hinge pictures on the genealogy. And then everything else is my project. And if I will continue to nibble at it, I fear until I'm dead. So that's my clutter.
So you're human, is what I'm hearing. Like you're not perfect, you're not cured of clutter, our stuff.
It's legacy work. That's what a family tree is, a part of. Family tree is one aspect of a legacy. The family videos, the family recipes, the weddings, the birthdays, all of that, that's a gift. But in order to even do that, you have to know where everything is. And sometimes that means digging through bottoms of closets, attics, basements, neighbors, relative overseas. Just they can't even do their job.
Right. It's interesting because when I lost my weight, over 20 years ago, I entered a contest, like a before and after contest, and I wrote a beautiful story. And I think I won like $50, but I had a really hard time finding before pictures. I had been hiding for years behind a child on my lap, or all 5'2.5" of me in the back row with all the tall people, or I was taking the pictures. There wasn't a lot of proof that I had been over 200 pounds at one point. And I actually had to reach out to other people. Like you say, I contacted friends whose weddings I had been to, relatives whose weddings, bar mitzvahs, etc. I had been to. There really weren't a lot of pictures because I was hiding from the camera so diligently. And if I had it to do all over again, we can't go back in time and change anything. We are who we are because of what's happened in our past and what we did in our past. But it would be nice if I was in a few more photos during that period of time, if for no other reason that to me now it's a badge of honor. Like this is what it used to be. This is what it is now, or that's what it is now as I, am in my 50s and navigating menopause and that extra weight. My other question, so I kind of live in the theory that if you have to organize your stuff, that maybe you have too much. That
No.
so I know you disagree, and that's why I brought it up.
Think
We just say, I don't mean it in a very binary way. It's one way or the other, but that there are spaces and times that, yeah, go ahead.
right. I let me say that when I've been away from home, because I'm to and from Rhode Island to New York for the business, and when I haven't been home for a while, my weekend task is often to reset the house. That means putting the coats just so in the closet, like shaking them out and straightening the hangers. It's amazing how you can have, again, the spices. You can open the spice cabinet and you know that you left it a certain way, but you come home and it's not that certain way. So you put it back. And so there's, even with just a little
Right,
or just enough,
right.
I can find myself spending all day, mm, cleaning out the bottom of the silverware drawer and making it pretty again, and maybe moving a little things around. And okay, this on the cabinet can turn a little bit this way for this week. And you organize what you have because you have fewer items. They're more important. And so they need to be cared for differently. And
I hear you.
so and so sometimes you just want to move them around a little so that things take a slightly different priority. It's like picking favorites. If you've got that one mug you always use, well, all the other mugs are in the cabinet going, pick me today, and it's like, so try using the other ones. And to me, that's organizing, shuffling things around so that it's like tilling the soil. You've got to
Yeah,
turn it over in
yeah,
order to grow. So if if you only wear one pair of socks and you really only wear that one pair of socks, then you don't need 40 pairs of socks. But if you have 40 pairs of socks and you're using your 40 pairs of socks, that's not clutter.
yeah. That's completely different. I just think there are a lot of people who, like, especially this time, so we're talking, in the middle to end of January, and people get in the, like, oh, my goal is to, clear out the house. And anybody who's ever worked with me knows that I encourage people to set ridiculously simple goals. And when I say ridiculously simple, I mean it sounds weird saying it out loud because it sounds so easy. Those are the best kind of goals because you do it quickly, you feel great, you pat yourself on the back, you are now more motivated, inspired, and more confident in being able to take on the next step. And all of those little steps then become the building blocks to more complex goals. So, someone who says, I'm going to take Saturday off and I'm going to clean out the closet, potentially is going to fail at that task because they said they were going to clean the closet as opposed to, I'm going to clean one shelf in the closet, or I'm going to do half of the hanging, clothing, or I will go through the boxes. Like the simplest step. Because at the end of the day, you do one, probably you'll stick with it and complete more, but you start with the smaller goal and build up as opposed to like feeling like a failure because you didn't do what you expected. And a lot of this is, but I have to cull and remove and declutter before I can put that puzzle back together in, an organized fashion. And what you were talking about is something that I encourage also, and that is there needs to be maintenance involved. Just like maintaining a weight loss, the decluttering needs to be maintained, which means once a week you may need to touch things, but you only have
Right.
to touch them as opposed to starting from scratch 6 months later.
It's a standard operating procedure. It's the If the process is there, if the habit is there that you are making your bed that you are emptying your garbage cans, that you are opening your mail in your boxes and recycling those, then you can move on to other things because that's not in your way. Setting that routine and knowing that that's important to you, you have to feel like you deserve that. And I think that's the time people either come at it from a mental point of view or a physical point of view. It's one or the other. So either someone says, Mercy, come in and reset my home or my office, be down to order, I will maintain it. And then they go to therapy or coaching or some sort of work mentally, or they've done all the work mentally and they're like out of integrity in their space. And now they need to change that over in order to do what they said that they would do mentally. And so when those align, but when you mentioned one shelf and one spot, I would add to that by offering up the option of one category.
Right.
And
100%.
so often a category can be office supplies or it can be pens within office supplies, pens, writing instruments, pens, pencils, markers, whatever. If you can go broad and do office supplies, all you're doing that day is finding and choosing from all the office supplies, no matter where they live in your life. That's an accomplishment. But to look only in one spot on your kitchen table, by your telephone, by your desk, and only look at what's there, okay, that works too. But that's not true organizing. That's a start.
The decluttering that happens before the organizing. 100%. So one of the things I like to do is a 30-day decluttering challenge. And on day one, you get rid of one thing, two things, nine things. Everybody has something they can let go of. I don't care who you are and where you live, there is something you can let go of. And then it's not as overwhelming, which also gives you the ability to say, well, today is what is today, the 23rd? I'll get rid of 23 items, or I can say, I'm going to work on the socks. I'm going to work on the shoes. I'm going to work on the books or whatever it is. So before we finish, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your book, which I loved. It's a beautiful snapshot into your life, who you are, how you got to where you are. I think one of the things we talked about when I read the book was that I was like, what happened in the 20s? Like I knew her during that period of time, but we both were like on opposite coasts for a lot of it. And I felt like I missed the beginning of your organizing career. And so I was able to discover it in there. And you tell some really great stories. Can you just say like a thing or two about the book?
The book was a way to give back. I have been blessed to have a business for 30 years and incredible clients and team. So if I didn't wake up tomorrow morning, my life is complete. I know I'm grateful for that. But the things that I have observed by having had the opportunity to enter in some of the most incredible people's lives, and they had all the resources available to them, and they had the best of advisors available to them. And yet there was chaos. And that chaos always caused a crisis. And I wanted to take the opportunity to share some of those moments and normalize these scenarios. Some of those stories are individuals and some are a little bit, put together from the same type of thing that we've seen over 3 decades numerous times. And the reality is everyone identifies with some story more than others because it relates to them. And it's not because it is them. It's because we all go through these scenarios. And so that book is trying to, without judgment of the scenario, protect people and their objects. I really believe that if you've chosen to keep the one fabulous sippy cup or the favorite sweatshirt or pair of glasses, if those are your choices, you don't want to lose them. You don't want them to disappear unless you're ready to. So protect it by knowing what you own, insuring it the right way, and talking about what you want to happen with it if you weren't there to make a choice is what conversations I want to have with people. So that was my way of talking to a lot of people quickly.
Yeah. I think if you haven't read the book yet, Chaos Whisperer, Sonya is the Chaos Whisperer. And it's not something that started 30 years ago when she started her business. It started like, I think I didn't know you until we were 13, but I have a feeling you probably came out of the womb, ready to.
And organizing cans in diapers. Yes.
A month early. Wow, that doesn't surprise me either. So what else would you want, before we close up, is there something we missed, something that like listeners have to know about Sonya or Seriatim or our relationship?
Oh, well, our relationship is, I think over all of your podcasts, you'll begin to share tidbits of that. And also, I think the way that Seriatim and your business thoughtfully coaching come together is really one of the friendship, but also the conversation remains the same. We're all talking about a something, and your something happens to be an emotion, but it manifests in a physical, and I'm dealing with the physical because the mental couldn't be dealt with, and it caused the gutters, the leaves in the gutter. There is no right or wrong, but if you're going to solve it, you're going to go to A and B. You're going to have to do both.
You're going to have to take action, I think is what it is. And what I have learned about people with problems with clutter that's extensive, not like I have a pile of paper on my desk or, I have too many mugs, but someone who really is that hoarder, which for so many of them, I get it. It is exhausting physically and mentally. And if you don't get started, it's never going to get finished. But it doesn't look like it can be finished. So it's just easier to not take action at all.
So a visual for that people often relate to in conversation is when you're on your computer and you've opened a ton of tabs, like you're in the 30, 40, 50, or
I was counting my tabs.
You go left, right, open tabs. Somehow or other, your machine starts to slow down because the energy is flowing through each of those wiggly and chaotically. And so it's kind of the same. The more stuff that's around, the more every little bit takes a piece of energy. So by the time you walk home and you're looking around, you're defeated.
It's exhausting.
But the joy that people who love to transform a space have, it's a match made in heaven. When someone allows that to happen, everyone wins.
Yes. 100%. Oh, I love that. Everyone wins. I want to finish with that.
Everyone wins.
Sonya, thank you for being my first guest.
You're welcome.
We'll have you back when you write your second book or your third book or, all the other big things that you're going to be doing. Yes. Oh, I love you. No. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free. I hope you found a spark of inspiration to help declutter not just your space, but your mind and life as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little lightness in their life. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Small steps lead to big changes, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. For more tips, resources, and ways to connect, check out my website, follow me on social media, and don't forget to check out the Design Your Healthy Life Strategy program to take your transformation even further. Until next time, keep letting go of what no longer serves you and making room for what truly lights you up.